So in the month of November, I'm interviewing some really awesome guys about guy stuff. So I decided to talk to men about topics that I think are unique to them, but impact all of us. And today, I'm so excited. I get to talk to my friend Bill, who I worked with at Amazon. And so I won't say much about you because I'm going to talk about that as we talk. But I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself, and then we'll have a conversation.
Great, Leah. Thanks. So I'm Bill Burkland. A little bit about me. I am been married 40 years, three kids, all of whom are married, two of whom work at Amazon. And I have a grandson. And actually married for, we're just celebrating our 40 years on Saturday. So
Wow.
um, yeah, so spent 18 years at Amazon and got to intersect and work with Leah on some crazy payment stuff. Um, and spent most of my life in Seattle, but lived and worked in Europe for 3.5 years with Amazon. And before Amazon, I joined Amazon in my early 40s. Before that, had a kind of a full career at a family business that we took public, and but that's a different story for a different time.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's so funny. I remember you telling me about that when we worked together. That's very cool. Well, I'm excited to talk to you because obviously, as you said, we work together. And when I was thinking about this series, you came to mind, and then other people were like, "Talk to Bill," and I was like, "I got it. I know." So, but part of the reason you came to my mind is that you left a really indelible mark on me when I worked with you. And so we worked on this kind of project together to stand up a new line of business at Amazon. And what I remember when I think about that time, I'm going to get choked up. This is really interesting. It doesn't happen very often. Oh, crazy kitty.
Comfort
Um,
cat.
yeah, thanks. Good job, Kat. What I remember about that time is that you were someone who always made space for other voices. You know, we were working on this thing together. You made space for the sort of non-traditional voice in the room, the younger person's voice in the room, the women's voice in the room. When it was, it was Amazon. It was still very male dominated. There was a lot of men in a room and a couple of women typically. But you always made space for opinion. And when I thought about that, I wondered, like, how did you do that? How did that come about, and how did you learn to hold that kind of space as a leader for people?
Um, when I came to Amazon, I was again, I'd had kind of a full career, early 40s. Um, had failed enough times and seen enough success where I think, when I got to Amazon, you're surrounded just by a bunch of very talented people, and in my case, almost all of them were younger than I was, and almost all of them, and I don't say this with false humility, were smarter than I am, had, more degrees. And so, when I think about the people I worked with, whether they were men or women or how old they were, it was a fairly easy thing to do to say, oh, that person will help this project succeed. It will help us. That person will help us achieve our goal. And um, I think I happen to be lucky to be surrounded by some talented uh, women who helped me succeed, who helped an Amazon succeed, and so um, it wasn't a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think maybe your experience coming in, instead of coming in like immediately out of university and being on a team with only guys and then growing up in that culture, maybe you had had different experiences. So you had and by then you'd been married a while, so you had a different kind of worldview coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that contributed. I also have, at the time when I started at Amazon, I have two daughters and who were kind of in their teenage years, and so you begin to think about their future,
Yeah.
and when you go to work, you begin to think about the people you work with, kind of in the context of, my own daughters and my son, um, and what you want for them is to have an equal opportunity to succeed on their own merits, and so I think that's the way um, I approach relationships at Amazon.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, I mean, the other thing I was thinking about, I think that's tied to this is you're a person who when I read what you've written, when I have worked with you, when I think about the legacy that I think you've been working on and leaving in those kinds of spaces, specifically at Amazon. You're a person who has really strong values. You're a person who I think demonstrates those values. And Amazon is a fast-paced, ambitious space. And so, I mean, I think I think sometimes people lose themselves in those kinds of environments that are really hard charging, really fast paced, succeed, 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 compete. But it feels like along the way you manage to maintain your sense of self, your values, and still be successful. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive.
Right.
I um, Amazon. So Amazon's an interesting case. It is.
Yeah.
It's all those things that you mentioned, but um, there's also opportunities for Amazon to be better, to move faster, and it may be not completely intuitive. And so, one of the statistics about Amazon that I remember, and I think this is from like 2021, and this is, by the way, going to be kind of directionally correct, but precisely wrong.
Yeah.
When you look at the overall makeup of Amazon, it was roughly then about 52% men and 48% women. And you think, oh, they're in a couple of years will be 50-50 and that will look right. But when you begin to peel back some layers, and you look at the L7 population on down, then that percentage is about 60% male and 40% female. And then when you look at L8, the director level on up, that flips to about 75% male
Right.
and 25% female. And so that tells you that there's some systemic bias
Mhm.
that doesn't do Amazon any favors. They're fishing from a much smaller pool of talent than they should be fishing from.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the values I think that I brought to Amazon are the same values I think that will help Amazon grow and succeed and continue to accelerate. Is you have to find a way to be more inclusive. It's I think for any business, it's part of self-preservation.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. I mean, I really struggle. I mean, obviously, I left Amazon, did a couple, other big company stints, but also worked at scale ups and startups. And I'm just really, I want to say I'm surprised, but I don't think it's surprise. I think it's just continued disappointment after 25 years of being in tech, I'm like, really? But the data says that when you have women in your leadership team, when you have women in your product team and in your engineering team, when you have women in your leading in some fashion, that you make more money. So I don't understand why the bros don't get it. Like,
I mean, I so I think I mean, it's weird because as a father, like I said, like I want a meritocracy. I want
yeah,
all my the kids, whether they're my daughters or my son, to be able to succeed on their own merit.
yes,
But as a business leader, when you see the statistics, the data, I think there needs to be some way to shock the system to bring equilibrium because I'm going to butcher this quote, but it's somewhat analogous. It's a quote from Martin Luther King, who said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I I think the unfortunate thing about that is the length of that arc,
yeah,
and it feels like here we are in 2024, and we're having this conversation, which feels like it's something that should have been settled decades, if
right,
many decades ago.
right.
And so I think that's the frustrating part, is how do you have a company like Amazon or any other company kind of reflect um, what greater society is? It's
Yeah, I
tough.
mean,
It's tough.
I think it is really tough. And I think that two things come to my mind. One is that when I was at Amazon working on the payments team, I was always stunned that there were almost only men working on those payments teams. And yet the average buyer at Amazon is a 35-year-old woman, right? And I'm like, maybe we should consider this when we're building things, right? Maybe we need some women on the team who can tell us how women shop, right? But I always thought that was really fascinating. When we look at the statistics, it was always this certain demographic that was the primary buyer on Amazon, and yet the teams building the buying experience were like, oh, let's make it like this. And I'm like, okay, but that's not how we shop, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
you know, that's interesting. And then the other thing that comes to my mind is when I was in Berlin and I was a CTPO, right, at a company. So I had all of tech and product. And I was in this CTO club, which was me and a bunch of men. And one day we were having a conversation about numbers, like how do we hire more women? And I think I was sitting at about 39%. Yeah, was that right? I think I was saying about 39% in terms of women male to female ratio, which was pretty healthy, right? Given what I had and what we were dealing with. And one of the other CTOs said, "How are you doing that?" And one of the other guys said, because I said, like, I have two female engineering managers, I have a woman on every team, I have, so this, like, there's at least one woman, mostly two women on every team. This is what we're doing. And one of the other CTOs said, "Well, how are you doing it?" And one of the other guys said, "Are you kidding? She can hire women because she's a woman. Like, they all want to be on her team." And I was like, that is accurate, right? Like, I could hire female engineers like that because they were going to work for a female CTO.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's not, I mean, I'm not even an engineer, but they would come work for me.
Yeah.
And I think we fail to see the basics. Like, that is such an easy thing. If you can find a really great senior female leader and put them on your
Yeah.
team, women will come work for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's what's missing at Amazon.
Yeah.
Uh, I keep going back to Amazon because it's where I spent
Yeah.
18 years of my life, and I think it's a good example because I do think they've made progress, but again, it's that what is the length of that arc and
Yeah.
how patient should we be? You know, because it's in my opinion it's going to improve the business, like it there's a business case to be made. uh it's just not out of the goodness of our hearts. It's the right business decision. um
Yeah. 100%.
so
No, I think that makes total sense. So the other thing I was curious about, I think as a man, when you were working at Amazon and even before that, I suppose, how did you ensure that you held enough energy so that you could go home and be a good dad and a husband and a member of the community? And how did you manage that balance between the kind of a really active, high-paced, fast job, but also wanting to be an engaged dad and husband?
yeah, with lots I handled it with lots of caffeine.
Yes.
Is the answer. I was never without a coffee in my hand.
Yes.
um I mean, at the excuse me, I suppose, and I don't know whether this is me thinking back
Yeah.
or whether I thought this at the time. I actually don't know. But the legacy I want to live or leave is first and foremost what type of kind of family person I am or was. So father, husband, brother, son. And so I I always made a point to coach my kids' teams, or to make a piano recital, or um, make sure that I was investing my time in uh, family.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes that does it's exhausting, obviously, but
Yeah.
that's it's was at the end of the day, I hate that phrase, but I think it's the single most important thing. And frankly, I didn't always succeed. Like before I
Sure.
came to Amazon, I traveled to China about 3 months out of the year,
Oh, wow.
missed a lot. Um, so actually, when I transitioned to Amazon, even though Amazon was a much more demanding, much faster pace, at least I was kind of home,
Home, right?
least
Right.
close to the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Did you find that kind of in those years, did you have time to also have friendship and like have other like male friends and establish and have those, or was it just like, "Ah, I got all this on my plate. I don't have room for that either."
Yeah, well, so anybody who knows me personally knows that my wife, Sean, is fantastic. She is the social
Yeah.
director. So our
Sit at the
calendars,
clipboard on the cruise, right?
yeah, our calendars were filled. And part of it is with when you have kids that are growing up, your friend group changes and
Yeah.
oftentimes, what happened is many of our friends were the parents of our kids' friends. And
Yeah.
so, spending time with your family and your kids is often the same thing as spending time with your friends,
Yeah.
your adult friends. And so, plus, I'm very grateful that my family, my brothers, my sister, my mom, and dad were all in the Seattle area.
Yeah.
So it was relatively easy to spend time, with that group of people. And what made that possible is, if left to my own device, I probably would have come home from work and just stayed at home and done nothing. My wife ensured that we were out and
No, that's
had a great,
great. No, I think that's
yeah,
great. I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think one of the things I'm learning in some of these conversations is that one of the first places men give ground up is in friendship. And so they're just like, well, I got these kids, I got this wife, I got this job, that's what I have time for. And so then they don't have a support system outside of that. And that
yeah,
pushes a lot of the emotional load to their partner, right?
yeah.
And so it's just that I just wanted to ask because I know that you did have a busy, a busy life and a busy schedule, and I think, but that is one of the things I'm seeing that's fairly thematic, right? That men are like, yeah, I got some friends, but I don't see them, right? Or I don't talk to them about anything. We just go hunting, right? Or whatever. So it's like, okay, so yeah, definitely interesting. Yeah. So I would love for you to tell me about your new career since you're a retired ex Amazon guy. Tell me about your new career. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things I've always wanted to do since I was probably in college was to write a book. And so um, I took advantage of retirement and have written a book. It is a religious satire, which is not the book I thought I would write, but that's what came out.
Mhm.
It's called you could think about it as it's a retelling of the birth of Jesus in the same kind of spirit of the Life of Brian, the Monty
Yeah.
Python movie,
Yeah.
and the play, The Book of Mormon. It's kind of silly satire.
Nice. I'm so
So it will be published in December,
perfect
December
timing,
5th.
right?
Yeah, just ironically, just in time for Christmas, which,
Perfect. Just in time for a
yeah,
good Christmas book. Yeah, I like I
that's
said, or told you earlier, I've already ordered my copy. I've pre-ordered
yeah.
through Amazon. I'm good to go. But yeah, no, I'm excited for you. As a totally final question, it just occurred to me. This I get to ask this sometimes. I always tell people that when you walk into a room of like a tech networking event, that I can walk in and in a circle of a conversation can pick out everybody that works at Amazon because we all speak a certain kind of language. Even though I was only there for a little over 3 years, we all have a lingo. And as soon as you're like, you worked at Amazon, like I could always pick them out, right? So I'm
Yeah.
curious as we close, what's your favorite leadership principle from Amazon and why?
Uh, I'll answer that in two ways.
Okay.
Uh, so, so it. when I was at Amazon and I was asked that if we'd have like an all hands
Yeah.
with my team, and I was asked that question, which I often was, what I would say is I don't have a favorite. I think the secret sauce of the leadership principles is how they interact
Right.
and how there's tension between some of the leadership principles. So I really think it's um the combination of all of those is really what makes them special and what makes, I think, Amazon culture special. I'm
Yeah.
still a huge Amazon
Me too.
fan, and I do think the leadership principles are a big part of what's made that a successful company. Now that I'm not with Amazon, and if I had to think about just one, it would be earn trust.
Yeah.
Would be my favorite because I think if you don't have the foundation of a trusting relationship, then it's very, very difficult to deliver results. It's very difficult to want to dive deep,
Right.
to want to act with a bias for action. It makes disagreeing, I think, painful, and so I think kind of that the earned trust. Having some humility is I think kind of for me the foundational um, leadership principle.
I love that. I love that so much. I can attest to the fact that you were very good at that. So
Thank
I see it. So no, I love that. I love that. And I agree with you. I think that they, having then gone to other companies and where they wanted to have some of these same kinds of principles, one of the things I would have to talk about is that tension. Like you can't
you.
have is right a lot and always gathers data, right? And results driven or whatever, if there isn't a bit of a tension between intuition and
Yeah,
information, right? So I would try to use this as an explanation and they were just like, I don't understand. And I'm like, no,
yeah.
you're building purposeful tension, right? It's on purpose. So
Yeah. It's, I found also, I mean, I somewhat hate to admit this, but I found the leadership principle super helpful, even in around at home and in family life. And,
yes,
um, some of the frameworks like one way, two-way doors. I mean, those are just very helpful little things to ways to approach problem solving. And so I
totally.
still carry a lot of that with me and intend to keep it with me.
Yeah, I mean, as a leader, I took so much of it, like yes, there's a lot, like you said, anything can be better. But for me, I think I always say I went into Amazon a decent product manager because I had been one for quite some time. I left a really great product manager and was
Yeah.
able to take that into the rest of my career. So I'm super grateful for that season because the rigor that it applied to my skills, right? And the culture and
Yeah.
understanding. Like when I first went to Amazon, I remember being like, what are they all drinking that they all talk like this? Like, and then after a few
Yeah.
months, you're like, oh, I might have just used the phrase, I'm going to be vocally self-critical.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, then I've probably explained my feeling about disagree and commit 1,000 times since Amazon, right? With
Yeah.
my teams, with individuals, and like lecturing, giving talks. Like I must have talked about disagree and commit a million times, but at least a
Yeah.
thousand times I've explained that concept, right, over the last 10 years, 11 years, right? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, apparently it's stuck, right? So,
Super helpful. I mean,
yeah,
these are it's a series of shorthands that
yeah,
just make kind of communication, decision making. It just makes it a lot clearer.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, it was my pleasure to talk to you today, just like it was my pleasure to work with you before. So,
Yeah, likewise. It's great to catch up and thank you for thinking about me. I'm very flattered.
yeah. So everybody listening, go get Bill's book.
That's right.
Let's
That's right.
just make it a
That's
success. Let's just get the
fun, fund my retirement.
Exactly, exactly. All right, if you're watching this, you'll notice there's a little QR code in the corner. You can donate to Movember, and that is an organization that raises money for men's health issues like testicular cancer and prostate cancer, but also for men's mental health and behavioral health and suicide awareness. So please donate some money, and we'll see if we can make men's lives better over the coming years. So thanks again, Bill.
Thank you.